The story starts in a movie theater. A little boy named Maddie is making loud sucking noises with his pacifier. A woman turns around and tells him to be quiet. Soon, a theater worker named Carl comes over to kick Maddie out. This isn't the first time Maddie has snuck into the theater without a ticket. Carl's coworker, Hank, walks over and asks what's going on. Carl explains it's the third time the kid has gotten in for free. Hank asks Carl if he's ever seen the boy's family and tells him to just leave it alone. Nearby, Hank's daughter, Ronnie, sees Maddie hiding under a seat and decides to stay quiet. Carl argues that feeling sorry for the kid won't pay the theater's electric bill. Not wanting a fight, Hank asks his daughter if she saw where the kid went. She says yes. For a second, Maddie thinks she's going to give him up. Instead, Ronnie points Carl in the completely wrong direction. As Hank and Ronnie leave, Maddie crawls out from his hiding spot, but Carl sees him. The kid makes a run for it. Carl yells after him, warning that the next time he catches him, he's calling the cops. A little while later, Maddie is walking through the town of Derry, trying to hitchhike. After many cars pass him by, one finally pulls over. Inside is a couple with their 2 kids. The man driving asks Maddie if he's okay. The woman tells him to get in and gives him a blanket. The man asks where his parents are and offers to take him home, but Maddie says he doesn't care where they go, as long as it's not back to Derry. The woman says they are on their way to Portland, and Maddie agrees to the ride. As they drive, the couple turns on the radio. A news report is talking about underground nuclear tests in Moscow and giving warnings about radiation. The kids ask to listen to something else, so the woman changes the station. The oldest daughter, Arlene, is holding a piece of raw liver. She sniffs the red juice dripping from it and then holds it up to Maddie. Suddenly, everyone else in the car starts laughing. Maddie looks out the window and sees a road sign pointing back toward Derry. He tells them he thought they were going to Portland and asks them to stop the car. The driver just turns the radio up louder. When Maddie spots a gas station, he asks them to pull over, but nobody answers him. The younger kid starts spelling out random words, and soon the others join in. Maddie panics and tries to open his door, but it's locked. He grabs the steering wheel, and in the struggle, he accidentally hits the woman's pregnant belly. She immediately starts screaming. She's having contractions. The baby is born right there in the car while the family chants strange words. When the baby comes out, it isn't human. The mother holds the creature up by its umbilical cord as it screams and sprays blood. The family just watches as the creature lunges at Maddie. In the chaos, his pacifier is knocked out of his mouth and falls to the floor. For months later, in April 1962, we meet a young man named Phil who is obsessed with airplanes. Every morning before school, he watches the planes flying over Derry from a nearby airbase and writes down the types he sees in a notebook. At the airbase, Major Laren Hanlon and Captain Russo are getting ready for a new assignment. Hanlon is excited to be moving to Derry, but Russo feels uncomfortable about it. Colonel Fuller greets them and explains that even though the base is in a small town, it's one of the most important in the country. Because it's the northernmost U.S. air base, it would be the first to respond if there was a nuclear attack. During the tour, Russo notices a restricted area with a sign that says Special Projects. When he asks about it, Fuller quickly changes the subject. He asks Hanlon if he'll be living on the base. Hanlon says he's renting a house in town and that it will be ready before his family arrives. At the local school, a girl named Lily opens her locker, and a jar of pickles falls out and smashes on the floor. Her friend Marge runs over to see if she's okay. Lily says she's fine and jokes that she's going to smell like pickles all day. Marge then tells Lily she feels weird in her new glasses and worries she won't fit in, but Lily tells her not to worry. Meanwhile, Phil is talking to his friend Teddy about aliens. Phil is convinced that Martians might be hiding out at the airbase. Teddy asks him if he studied for their exam. Phil says there's no point because a world war is probably going to start soon anyway. Back at the airbase, an aviator named Masters is openly disrespectful to Major Hanlon. The situation gets tense until General Shaw walks in. The general scolds Masters, making it clear that he will not put up with any kind of discrimination. Masters then salutes Major Hanlon. Later that day, Phil is spying on his neighbor while Teddy does his homework nearby. Teddy mentions that it's been 4 months since Maddie disappeared. Phil brushes it off, saying that talking about it won't bring him back. But Teddy argues that they never found Maddie's body, so he still believes the boy could be alive somewhere. Teddy suggests that Maddie may have run away. Phil says he doesn't understand why his friend would do that. Teddy reminds him that Maddie didn't have many friends, and that the few he had charged people to attend his birthday party. Phil argues they didn't really get paid since candy doesn't count as money. Teddy says it was still the same thing. Phil insists Maddie's mom made a fair deal and that they did Maddie a favor. Teddy points out that they didn't even know it was Maddie's birthday that day. Phil says forgetting the birthday wasn't what caused the disappearance and says Maddie is dead. That angers Teddy, and he leaves Phil's house. Elsewhere, Lily is in her bathroom, playing with her bracelet and thinking about Maddie. She remembers when he took her to the lookout, a place that had had been closed but left unlocked, and they made it their secret hideout. Maddie asked her not to tell Phil or Teddy. She asked if he thought she was crazy for going there, and he said he didn't. Maddie then asked about her father. Lily tells him that her father worked at a packaging factory. After work one day, she realized she had forgotten a mood ring inside. Her father went back to get it and was caught in one of the machines. He tried to stop it but couldn't. The accident killed him, and rumors later spread that his remains ended up mixed with pickle jars. Maddie tells her it wasn't her fault and that it was an accident. Fireworks go off, and he wishes her a happy new year. She thanks him for listening. Maddie tries to kiss her, but Lily pulls away and reminds him they're just friends. He apologizes and leaves despite her asking him to stop. Back in the present, Lily is interrupted by her mother, who reminds her to prepare her clothes for the next day because they're visiting her father's grave. Lily refuses, saying she's not ready. Her mother insists it's been a year and says facing it will help. Suddenly, Lily hears a voice coming from the bathroom drain. She thinks it's Maddie and asks where he is. A voice responds that he won't let him. Bloody fingers emerge from the drain and Lily screams. The next day at school, Lily tells Marge that Maddie spoke to her through the drain. Marge doesn't understand why Maddie would contact Lily when they barely spoke. Worried about gossip, Marge takes Lily to the bathroom and tells her to stop spreading the story. Lily insists it was real. Marge says they only have 2 months left until summer and need to avoid rumors. Lily accuses her of caring more about appearances. Marge says she's just trying to help. Phil and Teddy ride their bikes to the hideout where Lily is waiting. She says she needs to talk to them. Phil assumes it's about her father, but Teddy says that rumor isn't true. Phil says Maddie told him not to talk about the hideout and that he'd only taken them there once. Lily is surprised and thought they were close. Lily tells them about the voice in the bathroom. Teddy asks if she's sure it was Maddie. She insists it was his voice. Phil doesn't believe it. Teddy says it's unlikely but not impossible and asks how Phil can believe alien stories but not this. Lily asks if they believe her. Teddy says he's trying but isn't sure. Lily leaves, disappointed. At the airbase, Shaw tells Hanlon that the man who disrespected him has been punished and that the incident is on record. We learn that Hanlon is a skilled pilot whose career suffered after an injury on a mission where he was the only survivor. He's now assigned to test a new plane. Teddy eats dinner with his family. His father asks if something is bothering him. Teddy asks if someone could kidnap a child and keep him underground for months. His father dismisses the question and tells him to stop reading fantasy. Later, Teddy is reading comics when his lamp keeps turning off. When it turns back on, he sees a face reflected in it. The lamp starts moving and Teddy screams. His brother runs in but sees nothing. The next day, Teddy tells Phil and Lily what happened. Phil thinks he might be next. Teddy suggests telling an adult, but Phil says no one will believe them. They agree to stay quiet until they figure out what happened to Maddie. The three go to the library, where they find a newspaper article about Maddie's disappearance that has been classified and removed from public records. The article says that at first authorities believed Maddie ran away, but after finding no trace of him, the theory shifted to possible homicide. They suspected a homeless man, but never found anyone connected to the case. The report states that Maddie was last seen on January 4th at the movies, according to the testimony of the daughter of one of the employees. The three decide to talk to Ronnie, the girl who saw Maddie last. She greets them angrily and tells them to leave, explaining that police have questioned her father multiple times and that he became the main suspect in Maddie's disappearance. As the group starts to leave, Phil comments that getting involved over a song Lily heard was a bad idea. Ronnie stops them. Lily tells her that she heard Maddie's voice singing from the pipes in her bathtub. Ronnie admits she heard voices, laughter, and children crying in the theater basement through the ducts, and even heard her own name. Ronnie decides to join them to help find out what happened to Maddie. Later that night at the airbase, Hanlon is attacked in his sleep by masked men wearing gas masks who demand information about a classified aircraft. He refuses, and they beat him. They threaten him with a weapon and begin counting down. Before they can shoot, Russo arrives and Hanlon fights back. Russo joins the fight and the attackers flee. Russo asks who they were, but Hanlon doesn't know. Meanwhile, Phil, Teddy, Lily, Susie, and Ronnie go to the theater after realizing the song Maddie sang came from the Music Man. Ronnie says there may be another copy in the basement. Phil questions the idea, but Teddy says Maddie may have been trying to tell them something. They enter the empty theater and sit down as the movie begins. Teddy starts crying. Lily asks if he's okay. He says he can't stop thinking about Maddie and wonders what he could have done differently. Lily admits she pushed Maddie away when he needed her. Teddy says things might have been different if they had gone to Maddie's birthday. Phil tells them it isn't their fault. The movie starts and the song Lily and Ronnie heard begins playing. Suddenly, Maddie appears on the screen carrying a baby. The baby is the same creature that took him. The family that picked Maddie up also appears. Maddie looks directly at them and begins moving closer to the screen. He asks if they are Lily, Teddy, and Phil. When they answer, he says he's there because they lied to him and weren't there when he needed them. The baby starts crying. Maddie throws it at the screen and it bursts through, growing larger. The creature attacks Phil and Teddy. Ronnie is trapped in the projection room when the door slams shut. Lily tries to save Susie but is attacked. Ronnie escapes, runs to Lily, and locks the door behind them, trapping the creature inside. Lily realizes she is still holding Susie's severed arm. Lily keeps having nightmares about what happened at the movie theater. Meanwhile, two police officers from Derry are watching Hank Grogan's apartment. They think he might have had something to do with the kids who disappeared. Sitting in their car, they talk about what they think Hank might have done. Inside the apartment, Hank's mother sees the officers outside and tells him they're still there. Hank says they won't leave until they find the kids or find a way to blame him for it. His mother says she already told the police he was home with her that night watching TV, but Hank knows the police don't believe her. His daughter, Ronnie, listens quietly to their conversation. Hank's mother then says that Ronnie never should have let those kids into the theater in the first place. Hank tells her it's not his daughter's fault. His mother says Ronnie needs to go back to school next week, but Hank refuses, saying that kids go missing in this town. His mother tells him he can't protect Ronnie forever. Realizing Ronnie is still in the room, Hank tells her to go to her room. Ronnie asks him if the police are going to blame him and arrest him. Hank tells her not to worry and that it was just grown-up talk. Somewhere else in town, Major Hanlon is sitting on his porch when a car pulls up. It's his wife, Charlotte, and their son, Will. Will runs inside to see his new room. Charlotte notices Hanlon's arm is hurt, and he tells her it was just a small accident at the base. He asks her what she thinks of the new house. Later, Will shows his father his new telescope. Hanlon explains that pilots sometimes use the stars to find their way. He then jokes about using it to spy on the neighbors, but Will says he would never do that. That night, Hanlon looks closely at photos of the masks his attackers were wearing. Charlotte thanks him for liking the telescope and says that Will isn't much like him. Back at Derry School, there's a new sign announcing a curfew, telling all children they have to be home before dark. The whole town is still on edge after the killings at the theater. Marge tries to fit in with the popular girls. When they start making fun of a boy, she laughs with them, even though she looks uncomfortable doing it. Ronnie returns to school, and other students whisper about her father, saying he's to blame for what happened. Lily walks up to Ronnie and says she was worried about her. In class, Marge asks Lily if she's okay. Lily says she's having a hard time. Marge warns her that talking to Ronnie will make her look bad and suggests she sit with the popular girls at lunch. Lily tells her that Teddy, Phil, and Phil's sister are dead and that she doesn't care about fitting in anymore. Will shows up late to his class and gets in trouble with the teacher. As he goes to sit down, another student pulls his chair out from under him, and he falls on the floor. Will just quietly picks up his things. Another boy tells him he has a cool pencil. At the military base, Hanlon is in a meeting. Colonel Shaw tells him that they searched his old room and found the weapon that was used to attack him. A man named Masters confessed that he did it and that he isn't a Soviet spy. Shaw says they won't put up with racism, and the other men involved are being looked into. Hanlon points out that the weapon was made in the Soviet Union. In town, Charlotte is running errands and sees people protesting the construction of a giant Paul Bunyan statue. At the butcher shop, she meets a man named Stan Kirsch. Outside, she sees a group of boys beating up another boy while people standing around just watch. She asks why no one is stepping in to help. When someone tells her that's just how kids are, Charlotte crosses the street and stands up to the bullies, giving the boy a chance to get away. That night at dinner, Charlotte tells Hanlon how upset she is that no one helped the boy who was being beaten up. She asks Will if anything like that has happened to him at school. He says no. Hanlon tells Charlotte it's better not to get involved in things like that. Will asks if he can be excused from the dinner table, but his mother stops him and asks how school was. He says everything was fine and asks again if he can go. This time, Hanlon lets him. Charlotte tells Hanlon she wishes they had more family time together and points out that he seems like he's a million miles away. He apologizes and says it's just been a long day. She asks if he wants to talk about it, but he reminds her that he can't talk about his work at the base. Meanwhile, Ronnie is in her bed, listening to her father and grandmother arguing in the other room. She stares at a photo of her mother, then pulls the blanket over her head. The bed starts to move up and down beneath her. The blanket suddenly turns red and begins to fill with water. Ronnie struggles to get out and falls onto the floor. When she looks back at the bed, she sees her dead mother lying there in a wedding dress. Her mother accuses her, "You ruined me," and warns that they are coming for her father next. An umbilical cord snakes out from the bed and wraps around Ronnie, pulling her closer. Ronnie screams and screams until her father bursts into the room, and the horrible vision disappears. Ronnie clings to him, terrified. At a local bar, 3 black military officers are talking about how the police have been questioning them. One of them, Dick Howaren, avoids talking about the mission he's on. The police chief, Clint, walks into the bar. Other people at the bar start whispering that Hank has probably been arrested. Clint gives a signal to the bartender, and the 3 officers get up and leave. When they get to the gate of the military base, the guard stops them, but Howaren gives his name, and the guard lets them pass. The next day, a group of Native American teenagers watches as soldiers dig on their land. Howaren is there. His commander complains about having to dig in the same places over and over again and questions whether Howaren really knows what he's doing. Howaren insists that they are close to finding what they're looking for. In the school cafeteria, Marge motions for Lily to come sit with her and the popular girls, but Lily sits by herself. Ronnie joins her and says, "It's back." Across the room, Marge's new friends are whispering about something. To get their attention again, Marge makes a joke, which seems to annoy one of the girls, Patty. Ronnie tells Lily that the monster said they are coming to get her father. Lily tries to make her feel better, saying she told the police that Hank wasn't at the theater. Ronnie asks her, "Did you tell them everything?" Lily admits she didn't mention the monster. Ronnie starts to panic, saying the police are going to take her father away. Lily explains that if she tells them the whole truth, they'll just send her back to the mental hospital. Ronnie accuses Lily of lying to protect herself. The entire cafeteria goes quiet. A teacher walks over and tells Ronnie she has detention. Out in the hallway, Will is eating his lunch alone. A boy named Rich tells him he can't sit there, but then sits down with him anyway. Later, a smoke bomb goes off in the hall, and in the confusion, Will bumps into a teacher. Both Will and Ronnie end up getting punished. Will complains that he was punished for no reason. Ronnie says she deserved hers. They start talking, and Will tells her he's interested in science. Outside the school, the police are putting Lily into their car. At the police station, Officer Clint questions her. He pressures her, hinting that she could be sent right back to the Juniper Hill Asylum. When he asks if Hank was at the theater, Lily pauses for just a second. That one moment of doubt is all he needs. Hank is arrested and taken away in a police car as Ronnie and her grandmother watch in horror. Furious, Ronnie runs straight to Lily's house and bangs on the door, demanding to know what she did. Lily says that Clint pressured her and she didn't know what to say. Ronnie just stares at her, filled with anger and sadness, before Lily's mother closes the door in her face. The next morning at the military base, Hanlon goes to see Masters in his jail cell. Hanlon puts a pistol and a clip of bullets on the table. He says it's the same type of gun one of his attackers used. He explains that it's a Soviet-made weapon and is very difficult to use. He asks Masters how he got it and how he learned to handle it so well. Hanlon adds that the attacker loaded the gun incredibly fast, something that even highly trained soldiers struggle with. He says he checked Masters' file and knows he couldn't have been there because he can barely even put together a standard M16 rifle. Hanlon keeps pushing him until Masters finally snaps. He grabs the gun and tries to load it, but he fumbles and can't do it. This proves to Hanlon that he wasn't one of the attackers. He goes to General Shaw and reports that Masters is innocent, and he tells the general he wants a full investigation into the attack. Before Hanlon can leave, Shaw asks him to sit down. He tells him that he wanted to see if the rumors about his brain injury were true. He says he passed his test and that he has been looking for someone exactly like him. He admits the attack was a setup to test him and apologizes for how far they took it. Hanlon demands to know who attacked him. Shaw says he promised to keep their names secret, but he asks him to stay and hear him out. Meanwhile, Lily goes to the supermarket by herself. She hears a voice whispering that she should be locked up. Then, a voice on the store's loudspeaker calls out her name, and everyone turns to stare at her. She starts to panic as the aisles feel like they are closing in on her. She sees scary faces on the cereal boxes, and then sees her father's face trapped inside a jar of pickles. The pickle jar suddenly shatters. Cans and boxes fall off the shelves, and a creature reaches out and grabs her. When she opens her eyes, everything is back to normal, except for the broken jar on the floor. After this happens, her mother decides it's time to send her back to the Juniper Hill Mental Hospital. Back at the base, Shaw takes Hanlon to a restricted area. He explains that the Soviets and Cubans recently met to plan where to place their nuclear weapons. He tells him the base's true mission isn't to build a weapon, but to find one that is already buried somewhere in Derry. They don't know exactly what it is, only that it's very dangerous and is surrounded by strange objects that seem to be marking its location. He says they will need Hanlon's help once they find it. Just then, a man runs up with Dick Howaren and says they found something. Hanlon goes with them to the spot where they've been digging. Standing in the rain, they uncover discover an old car from the 1930s buried in the dirt. As they pull it out, several human skeletons are revealed. The story flashes back to a circus in 1908. A boy named Francis is looking at all the things to see. The man running the circus comes up to him and warns him that he's about to see the most disturbing show of all. Francis decides to go in anyway. Inside, he sees a maze of mirrors, twins who are joined together, and a piano player. In one room, a person in the shadows whispers for him to come closer. The person lights a match, and Francis sees it's an old man with only one eye. Other people in the shadows start to laugh, and Francis gets scared and runs away. Outside, his father finds him and gets mad at him for being scared. As a prize, he gives Francis a slingshot he won. A little later, their car breaks down. His father gives him some money to go buy a drink. He finds a lemonade stand run by some Native American kids. A girl there offers to trade him a drink for his new slingshot. Francis agrees to the trade. When the car is fixed, his father asks where the slingshot is, but Francis doesn't say anything. He and the girl run off and play together through the town. When they get to the edge of the forest, the girl warns him not to go in, but he doesn't listen and runs inside anyway. In the forest, Francis sees the same one-eyed old man from the circus. The man keeps appearing and disappearing all around him. Francis trips and grabs a stick to defend himself. The old man chases him, changing into a monster that crawls on its hands and knees. Francis falls again, and the monster jumps at him. But just then, the girl shows up and shoots the monster in the eye with the slingshot. She grabs Francis, and they run out of the forest together. Back in the present day, Lily's mother comes to pick her up from the Juniper Hill Hospital. The doctor tells her they've increased Lily's medicine and warns that if she has another breakdown, they might need to use tougher treatments. Lily talks to Ingrid, one of the cleaners. Lily tells her she feels terrible because Ronnie's father is in jail because of her. She's scared that telling the real story will just get her sent back to the hospital for good. Ingrid tells her that what really matters is who you have by your side in life. She encourages Lily to do what she thinks is right. Then, she gives Lily's bracelet back to her and says, "I believe you." At the police station, Police Chief Clint Bowers goes to Hank's jail cell. He offers Hank a cigarette and tells him a witness saw him near the movie theater that night. Hank says it wasn't him. Then, Clint pulls out a pack of the same brand of cigarettes Hank smokes and says it was found at the crime scene. Hank keeps saying he's innocent. Clint leaves while Hank is still shouting at him. Back at school, Ronnie walks down the hall while all the other students stop and stare at her. Some students laugh at Ronnie, and others write mean things about her dad on her locker. Will tells his friend Rich that he doesn't think Ronnie's dad is a killer. Ronnie goes to the bathroom to wash marker off her hands from wiping the insults off her locker. Lily comes in and offers to help, but Ronnie pushes her away. Ronnie says she wants to hit Lily for what she did to her dad. Lily tells her she's going to tell the truth to fix the mess she made. She explains what happened at the supermarket and how she got sent back to Juniper Hill. She says nobody will believe her without proof. Ronnie asks how they're supposed to get proof. Lily pulls out a camera and says they have to try. Ronnie doesn't think it will work. She says even if they take pictures, the police or doctors will just take them away. Ronnie is a little shaken by how determined Lily is. In General Shaw's office, Colonel Fuller reports that they took the car they dug up apart. All they found were blood stains and bullet holes. Shaw points out that they're looking for something that was buried way before that car was, but somehow the car was giving off a signal that Howaren picked up. Fuller says this connects to a cycle of events from 1935, when the Bradley gang was killed. He says that back then, witnesses reported seeing the creature. Shaw says they still haven't found what they're looking for. He orders them to use a plane to get Howaren as close to it as possible. Shaw shows Fuller an old object from his childhood that he thinks will help them track the creature. Fuller calls Howaren in and gives instructions to him, Russo, and Hanlon. Howaren will be their guide. They get on a plane and fly over the forests around Derry. Howaren is carrying a box with the object inside. When Russo asks what's in it, Howaren opens the box and shows them a slingshot. It becomes clear that the boy, Francis, from the flashback is General Shaw as a child. Howaren points to the east. Back in 1908, Francis and the girl stop running after they get out of the forest. Francis asks her why they stopped and what that creature was. The girl says she doesn't know and then asks him if he can keep a secret. Back in the present, a Native American woman named Rose is at a community meeting. They're talking about the military digging on their land. A young man warns her that the car they dug up belonged to the Bradley gang and says they need to do something. Rose tells him not to get involved. She tells the rest of the community that they should wait and see what the government is really looking for. On the plane, Howaren goes into a trance. He sees visions of the sewers, the old circus wagon, and a creature watching him. He sees flashes of violence and his grandmother warning him to run away. Back in the real world, he suddenly opens the hatch of the plane. Hanlon grabs him just in time and pulls him back inside. Later, Howaren is recovering in the infirmary on the base. He tells Shaw, "It saw me." Shaw tries to comfort him. Howaren warns him that the creature wasn't supposed to know they were looking for it, and if they keep going, something terrible will happen. Shaw ignores the warning and walks out. Will and Rich are sitting in a diner where Lily's mother works. Will is talking about space, and the two friends are getting along well. Ronnie and Lily show up outside the diner. Ronnie gets Will's attention and asks him to come out. She asks him if he knows how to develop photos, reminding him he's good at chemistry. Will asks why, but Ronnie just says he wouldn't believe her if she told him. Later, Will and Rich are walking down the street talking about the plan. Rich asks Will if he really believes what Ronnie said she saw. Will says he doesn't know if it's true, but he believes that she believes it. Rich jokes that Will is in love with Ronnie, but Will says he's not. General Francis Shaw walks into Rose's antique shop. Rose freezes for a moment when she sees who it is. Shaw tells her he couldn't remember anything about Derry until just recently. Rose says that's what happens. People who leave Derry slowly forget the town. Shaw says he remembers bits and pieces of his childhood, and he remembers her. Rose doesn't seem to believe him, saying they only spent one summer together. Shaw shows her a government document about the digging that has her name on it. Rose asks him what he's really doing in town. Shaw lies and says they are planning to build water pipelines. Rose warns him that their digging could disturb sacred land and old cemeteries. Shaw suggests they work together, but Rose is still suspicious and says she will talk to the town council about it. In a flashback, young Rose and Francis are spending time together. Francis tells her that his family is leaving the next morning. Rose gives him back the slingshot and asks him not to forget her. She tells him the town makes people forget. Back in the present, Ronnie, Lily, Rich, and will meet at an old tower. Lily explains that it used to be her friend's secret hideout. Ronnie asks how they plan to actually get a picture of the creature. Lily says they have to make it show up. Will asks what it looks like. Lily says it has appeared as the missing boy Maddie, as her own father, and as Ronnie's dead mother. Ronnie adds that it pretends to be people they know to scare them. Rich suggests it could be some kind of spirit and explains that his uncle believed ghosts take the form of dead family members. The group gets quiet. At Hanlon's house, Howaren joins the family for dinner. Charlotte talks about her past as a teacher and an activist. Howaren says he understands what it's like to be a man of color trying to make it in the military. Hanlon mentions that Will is out with friends tonight. Later, Ronnie, Lily, Rich, and Will are at the cemetery lighting candles. Rich tests the camera. Lily says they've followed all the steps. They sit in a circle. On the porch, Hanlon asks Howaren what happened on the plane. Howaren explains that he has an ability to see things without using his eyes. Hanlon says he felt a strange pressure in his head during the attack and thinks Howaren was in his mind. He asks him to stay out of his head. Howaren notes that Hanlon doesn't seem to feel fear and thanks him for saving his life on the plane. Charlotte comes out and interrupts them. Back at the cemetery, the group realizes that Rich doesn't actually know anything about rituals and was just making it all up. The girls get angry and decide to leave. Will tells them Rich was only trying to help and admits he doesn't believe in ghosts either. Upset, Ronnie walks off. Lily follows her, and Will and Rich hurry to catch up. Suddenly, the ground in the cemetery starts to crack and break open. The ghosts of their dead friends, Teddy, Phil, and Susie, appear in front of them. Lily tries to take a picture, but her camera jams. Ronnie grabs it and manages to snap one photo before she drops it. Rich picks it up, but drops it again, yelling for Will to get it. Will grabs the camera. Just then, they see something moving inside a nearby tomb. A hand reaches out from the darkness. Will quickly lifts the camera and snaps a picture. Ronnie, Lily, and Rich search for him until they see him walking back toward them. Will tells Ronnie that she was right all along and that he's sorry he didn't believe her. The four of them leave the cemetery together. Later that night, they sneak into the school to develop the pictures. Will explains how it all works. As the first picture develops, they see it's a photo of Teddy's ghost. The second one shows Susie's ghost. But in the last picture, the one Will took inside the tomb, they see something else. It's a clown with glowing golden eyes. The kids take the photographs to the police chief, Clint Bowers. He points out that Lily had told him before that she couldn't describe what she saw. Lily tells him it doesn't matter anymore because now they have proof. Rich says the photos show what Teddy looked like as a monster. Lily explains that whatever killed their friends must have followed them to the cemetery. Bowers asks them why they were in a cemetery at night. Will and Ronnie lie and say they were just taking a shortcut. Bowers seems suspicious and asks why they had a camera with them. Ronnie just says they were prepared. Bowers looks at the photos. In most of them, the other officers just see normal things like a pigeon, some flowers, and a gravestone. But in the last photo, the one Will took, they can see the clown, Pennywise. The officers dismiss it, saying it just looks like like a statue. Lily insists that it's a clown. Bowers gets angry and warns the kids to stop getting involved or there will be trouble. At school, the kids talk about what happened. They realize the creature could have easily killed them, but it didn't. They decide they need to find out if strange things like this have happened in Derry's past. Ronnie asks Lily if her mother might know anything. Lily says if she even mentions it, her mom will send her right back to Juniper Hill. Ronnie pushes back, saying her father could go to prison forever. Rich says it's useless because no adult will ever believe them. But Lily says she knows one person who might. Lily goes to see an old woman, Mrs. Kirsch, and tells her everything. Mrs. Kirsch remembers that children also went missing back in the 1930s. Lily says this feels different. Mrs. Kirsch agrees and tells her not to let fear stop her from doing what's right. Meanwhile, Charlotte reads a newspaper article about Hank being arrested. Rose, the antique shop owner, stops by with her grandson Daniel to deliver some things she bought. They talk about Rose's family and the town's history. Rose mentions the military digging on her people's land. Charlotte says her husband, Hanlon, is a pilot and doesn't talk about his work. Rose tells her to keep her family close and gives her a card with her number on it. At an old, abandoned military base, Halloran and his friends look around the area that General Shaw told him about. Halloran gets a very bad feeling about the place. Back at school, the students watch a video about what to do in a nuclear attack. After school, Will gets home and looks for the photographs they took. His mother, Charlotte, finds them first and asks him what's going on. Will explains that Ronnie thinks her father is innocent and they were just trying to help her. He tells his mom that something attacked them in the dark and he breaks down crying. Charlotte comforts him but tells him he is grounded and not allowed to go out at night anymore. At dinner, Charlotte mentions that Will has a girl he likes. Embarrassed, Will leaves the table. Charlotte asks Hanlon if he can spend some time with Will over the weekend, and Hanlon agrees. The next morning, Hanlon takes Will fishing. He asks his son about the girl, but Will says she isn't his girlfriend. Will hooks a fish, but it gets away. Hanlon goes back to the car to get more fishing gear. While he's gone, Will notices a strange fish swimming right toward him. Will leans closer to the water. Suddenly, a hand shoots out from under the surface, grabs him, and pulls him under. The creature looks just like his dad, but has a burned face, and it tries to drown him. Hanlon hears the noise, runs to the river, and pulls Will to safety. Will tells his dad that the creature looked just like him and tried to kill him. Hanlon notices fresh scratches on Will's wrists. Will says that there is something evil in Derry. As they talk, a red balloon floats by, and Hanlon sees it. At the police station, Charlotte goes to talk to Chief Bowers. She explains that the kids were just scared and ran off. Bowers says they'll look into it. Charlotte points out that they might have an innocent man in jail, but Bowers says that Hank lied to them and doesn't have an alibi. Charlotte asks if Hank has a lawyer. Bowers tells her that a public defender has been called, but he won't let her see Hank. Charlotte looks up Hank's address and goes to his home. She speaks with Hank's mother and says she wants to help. Hank's mother says she thought Hank was home that night, but admits that someone later claimed they saw him outside. Charlotte tells her that doesn't prove he's guilty. Hank's mother insists her son would never hurt anyone. Halloran is cleaning up the abandoned base. While he's taking out the trash, he has visions of blood, a broken door, and his grandmother warning him to be careful. Hanlon shows up and asks him about any future flights. He then tells Halloran that something attacked Will while they were fishing, and that the creature looked exactly like him. He shows him the scratches on Will's wrists. Hanlon asks what it is they are looking for out here. Halloran says he doesn't know. The kids meet up at their hideout. Will tells them the creature took the shape of his father and seemed to know his biggest fear. He says it was strong enough to kill him, but it didn't. They all wonder why. Lily remembers that Maddie was seeing strange things before he disappeared. Ronnie adds that Phil and Teddy were too. Will explains that when people are scared, their bodies release chemicals that predators can sense. Ronnie asks what they're supposed to do. Lily shows them some pills she stole from her mother. She says they're supposed to make you stop feeling scared. The group agrees that they should take them. In class, the students are watching another safety video. Marge apologizes to Lily for how she acted and asks her if she wants to have lunch together. Lily agrees. Charlotte goes back to the police station, this time with a permit to visit Hank. Another officer stops her and refuses to let her in, threatening to arrest her. Charlotte tells him she'll just have to make some phone calls then, hinting that she knows important people. Charlotte threatens to bring in reporters and lawyers if the officer doesn't let her see Hank. The officer finally gives in and lets her inside. Charlotte tells Hank that he was charged without even getting a bail hearing. She says she is going to file papers to fight the case and try to get him on house arrest. Hank asks if that means he won't be sent to Shawshank prison. Charlotte tells him the paperwork will take a while and he'll be moved to the prison tomorrow, but she insists that the police broke the law in how they handled his case. Hank thanks her. Charlotte tells him he has to be honest with her and tell her where he really was that night. Hank stays quiet. She keeps keeps pushing, telling him that whatever he was doing, it has to be better than what he's being accused of. Finally, Hank admits he was with a woman. He tells Charlotte that the woman is white, and if the truth comes out, he could be killed for it. He says he'll do whatever it takes to keep everyone safe. At the military base, Fuller tells General Shaw that they searched the areas Rose told them to avoid, and there was nothing there. Shaw says, "That's what I thought," and that the 27-year cycle is about to end. He asks Fuller how often the native kids from the reservation come near the base. Fuller says they come by every 3 days. Shaw tells him to invite them inside next time. At school, Lily has lunch with Marge. Marge asks if they can forget what happened and be friends again, and Lily agrees. A boy walks by and says a quick hello to Lily. Marge encourages her to go talk to him. As Lily walks to the bathroom, Patty and her group of friends tell Marge that their plan is still on. Marge then follows Lily into the bathroom. Inside the bathroom, Marge suddenly grabs her head, screaming about a sharp pain in her eye. Her eyes start to bleed and bulge out. Lily fumbles for one of the pills, but she drops it and it falls into the toilet. Marge stumbles out of the bathroom and into the school's woodshop, where she starts clawing at her own eye. Lily manages to get the pill out of the toilet, runs to Marge, and stops her. Just then, other students run in and see Lily holding the injured Marge. "I didn't do it," Lily shouts. That night, Hanlon asks Charlotte why she went to the police station. She explains it was about a man who was arrested for murder and whose daughter is friends with Will. Hanlon tells her to stay out of trouble. Charlotte replies that there's trouble everywhere. Hanlon just asks her to be careful. Later, Will is looking through his new telescope. He focuses it on a house down the street and sees Pennywise staring right back at him. He lets out a scream. Hanlon rushes into the room and finds Will frozen in fear. Will tells his dad he couldn't sleep, so he was looking through his telescope and saw someone staring at him. Hanlon looks out the window but doesn't see anyone. He goes outside to check the area, which wakes up some of the neighbors, but he doesn't find anything. Then, he notices a single red balloon caught in the branches of a tree. The next morning, Hanlon goes to General Shaw and demands to know what they're really looking for. Shaw takes him to a room where a young native man named Daniel is tied to a chair. Shaw explains that Daniel and his friends were caught spying on the base, and he believes Daniel knows where to find the thing they're searching for. Halloran comes into the room. Shaw says Halloran is going to get the information out of him. Daniel refuses to talk. Halloran uses his power to go into Daniel's mind. Daniel cries out in pain. Inside his memory, Daniel is a little boy again. His grandmother, Rose, is there, and she asks him to tell the story of the Galu, a legend from their tribe. Daniel tells the story. An evil spirit fell from the sky in a shooting star and roamed the forest. One of their ancestors took a piece of the star and made a dagger that could fight off the spirit. The tribe was safe for a while, but then settlers came, and the spirit started hunting the new people. The tribe's chief wanted to move away, but her daughter, Nikani, had another idea, to gather more pieces of the star. Nikani went to the cave where the spirit had landed. The chief led a group to save her, but the creature killed the chief. After that, Nikani buried the star pieces in special shells and marked their locations with fires. This created a border that the spirit couldn't cross. The tribe kept the locations of these markers a secret to keep the creature trapped forever. Halloran asks where the markers are. Daniel points to a spot on a map and says that tunnels under an old well lead right to it. The location is revealed to be the abandoned house on Nebolt Street. Halloran comes out of the trance, shaking. Daniel starts foaming at the mouth. Hanlon yells for help. Shaw and some guards rush in and order them to take Daniel to the infirmary. After Daniel is gone, Shaw asks Halloran what he found out. Halloran tells him they've found the location. Shaw is pleased. Hanlon demands to know what's going on, and Shaw tells him it's time to explain everything. Lily visits Marge in the hospital. Marge asks the nurse to leave them alone. Lily says that everyone thinks she hurt Marge. Marge tells her not to worry. She says she told everyone her glasses broke and cut her eye, and that Lily was trying to help. Marge says that if she told the real story, they'd send her to Juniper Hill, just like they did to Lily. She then accuses Lily of not believing her story. Lily admits she doesn't know if it will happen again, but she promises Marge that she's not alone in this. They hug. Lily meets up with the others and tells them how Marge is doing. Ronnie thinks Marge should tell Chief Bowers the truth, but Will reminds them that they already tried that, and he didn't believe them. Lily worries that the police will just think Marge hurt herself and that she, Lily, is covering for her. Rich says that's what most people are already saying anyway. Just then, the group notices a yellow raincoat moving nearby. They call out, "It's Maddie." He stumbles out, asks for help, and then collapses. Shaw explains to Hanlon that the pillars are 13 objects made from the same strange material as the creature itself. He says a native tribe buried them long ago to create a cage around Derry. So Derry is a prison? Hanlon asks. Shaw says yes. He says that Daniel is part of a group that has been keeping the creature trapped. Now, thanks to what they saw Shaw in Daniel's mind, they know where all the markers are. Shaw points to a location on the map, 29 Neibolt Street, and orders Hanlon to lead a team to dig up the objects. Shaw believes that whatever is buried there can be used as a weapon to end the Cold War. Hanlon is furious and accuses Shaw of putting his family in danger. Shaw just says that Hanlon was the one who chose to live in town and suggests he move his family onto the base. Hanlon refuses. Back at the hideout, Lily asks Maddie where he's been. He says he was down in the sewers and that the clown lives there. Maddie says the clown keeps some of the kids alive. Will guesses that it feeds on their fear, and Maddie nods, agreeing. Maddie explains that he escaped by waiting for daytime, because that's when the clown sleeps. Lily asks him if he saw Teddy, Phil, and Susie. Maddie tells them that Teddy was already dead when he saw him. Susie bled to death after the clown tore her arm off. He says Phil is still alive, but he can't move or talk. Ronnie says they have to go to the police. Maddie refuses, terrified that they'll just send him back to his abusive father. Lily begs him to help them free Ronnie's dad, but Maddie says he would rather go back to the sewers with the clown than ever go home again. A secret group of people in Derry gets together. They talk about how this cycle hasn't been as deadly as the ones in 1935 and 1908. So far, 25 people have gone missing and 7 are dead, mostly kids. They say the creature released something that poisoned Derry's water, which is making everyone in town act strangely. Another member mentions the Omen, which is the final big event that happens before the creature goes away for another 27 years of peace. Just then, a young man comes in with news about Daniel. At the police station, Hank is being put on a bus that's headed for Shawshank Prison. A crowd gathers and shouts insults at him. Charlotte tries to talk to him, but an officer stops her. Chief Bowers tells her that the last man they sent to Shawshank from Derry didn't even last a week. The father of Phil and Susie, the kids who were killed, breaks through the crowd, points a gun at Hank, and fires, but officers tackle him just in time. He screams threats at Hank. For a split second, Charlotte sees one of the officers with a creepy grin on his face, but then it's gone. Later, Charlotte is on the phone, trying to get lawyers to help Hank. Hanlon comes home and asks where Will is. Charlotte asks him what's going on. Hanlon tells her he needs her to believe something that is going to sound completely crazy. At the base, Rose confronts Shaw. She warns him that the creature cannot be controlled. Shaw reveals that Daniel has already told them the location of the markers. Rose realizes she cannot stop Shaw, so she offers to guide them herself, but Shaw refuses. She then demands to see Daniel to prepare him, warning Shaw that their lives depend on it. Rose goes to a safe and takes out a sharp piece of the fallen star. She is allowed to visit Daniel. When she enters, Daniel looks up at her and whispers, "They went inside my head." Rose nods, admitting she knows. Despite this, Daniel reveals that he still managed to trick the military. He told them they would need the star fragment to find the pillars, ensuring they would take him along. Rose gives him the fragment and tells him to keep it close. For safety, Hanlon moves his family to a house on the military base. Will is worried about his friends. Hanlon promises him it will all be over soon. Lily visits Ingrid, the cleaner from the hospital. She tells her that Maddie escaped from the sewers and says he thinks Phil is still alive down there. Lily refuses to go to the police. Ingrid warns her not to go into the sewers and makes her promise she won't. On the base, Charlotte tells Will that their temporary house will be okay for now. Will asks if he can go for a walk to explore the base. The military team, led by Fuller and Hanlon, enters the sewers with Daniel as their guide. As they navigate the tunnels, Daniel suddenly makes a break for it. Fuller shoots at him, but Daniel manages to escape into the darkness. In the chaos, he drops the star fragment into the water. Halloran gets separated from the group and is pulled into a waking nightmare. He sees his grandmother, but then his grandfather appears, demanding he open a mysterious box located in the sphincter of his soul. The grandfather shoots the grandmother to prove a point. Halloran refuses to open the box, realizing it is a trick by the creature, and the vision ends. Meanwhile, Hanlon and Russo are searching the tunnels. Hanlon suddenly sees Charlotte standing in the dark water. She tells him she is scared, but then her face twists into a monstrous grin and she lunges at him. Hanlon shoots her, and she falls into the water, vanishing. Shaken, Hanlon warns Russo to shoot anything that moves, no matter what it looks like. The kids hear soldiers in the distance shouting Halloran's name. Marge starts to panic and says they should go back. As she turns, she trips over a body on the ground. It's Phil. He's dead. A few feet away, they find the bodies of Susie and Teddy. Then they find Maddie's body, too. Maddie had lied to them the whole time. Across the tunnel, a creature that looks just like Maddie is watching them. They realize they've walked right into a trap. The creature starts chanting a creepy rhyme. Its head splits open, showing rows of sharp teeth inside a huge mouth. It spins around a pipe on the ceiling and transforms into the clown, Pennywise. The kids scream and run for their lives. Lily trips and falls, and the others leave her behind. Hanlon and Russo hear the kids screaming. Hanlon raises his gun and sees his son, Will, running toward him. Russo sees him too and yells that he's real. But Hanlon is convinced it's another one of the creature's tricks and is about to shoot. At the last second, Russo jumps in front of the boy and takes the bullet. Hanlon realizes in horror that he just shot Russo. He yells at the kids to get out of there. Russo tells him to just leave him there to rest. Hanlon apologizes, full of regret. "Make it count," Russo says with his last breath, and then he dies. Lily wanders through the dark sewers alone until she hits a dead end. Pennywise appears and starts making fun of her, talking about Maddie and her family. It then changes into the shape of her dead father and lunges at her, but it stops dead in its tracks when it sees the dagger Taniel dropped on the ground. The creature backs away. Lily picks up the dagger, realizing it's the one thing Pennywise is afraid of. Somewhere else, Ingrid gets into her car and is shocked to see Hank hiding in the back seat. He tells her to just drive. She takes him to a quiet spot in the woods. They kiss, and it's clear that she is the woman Hank was with that night. Hank explains that the prison bus was attacked by something he couldn't explain. Ingrid offers to hide him at her house, but he says no. He tells her he knows someone who can help him. Later, Ingrid goes to the military base and visits Charlotte, introducing herself as a friend of someone they both know. Hanlon gives his official report about Russo's death. General Shaw says he is sorry for what happened and that the people responsible will be punished. Hanlon refuses to answer any more questions and just asks where Halloran is. Shaw says Halloran hasn't come back yet, but that he probably escaped. At that moment, Halloran crawls out of a sewer opening, looking confused and dizzy. He sees the ghost of Russo staring at him. The box is open, and a strange orange light is glowing from inside. A flashback shows us Juniper Hill Mental Hospital in 1935. A young woman named Ingrid Kirsch wakes up a patient named Mabel and leads her down to the basement. A single red balloon floats near a door, and a hand in a white glove grabs the string. Mabel gets scared and wants to leave, but Ingrid just stares at the clown, unable to look away. Back in the present, Hanlon gets angry at Will for disobeying him. Will argues back, saying the creature killed Russo and he had to do something. Charlotte tries to step in, but Hanlon cuts her off, yelling that she wasn't there. He explains that the creature changes its shape, feeds on fear, and knows what its victims are thinking. Will insists he already knows all that because it has attacked them before. He says he won't stop helping his friends. Hanlon grounds him and forbids him from leaving his room. Will refuses, saying his friends need him. Hanlon tells Will he isn't acting like his son. Will yells back that his father wouldn't just let his friends die. Hanlon slaps him. Will breaks down crying and admits that the creature got inside his head. Hanlon refuses to believe him. Furious, Will storms off the base. Across town, wanted posters for Hank Grogan start going up. The kids meet up at the tower. Ronnie stares at one of the posters of her missing father. Lily shows them the dagger she found. She explains that it started glowing and scared the creature away. Will thinks it's ancient and connected to the strange carvings they've seen. Little by little, Lily starts acting possessive toward the object, treating it almost like my treasure. Convinced, she holds the dagger tightly and says they should go back to the sewers to finish this. Lily gets upset, saying she never wanted any of this to happen. Ronnie fires back that if they hadn't gone to Lily's house in the first place, their friends might still be alive and her dad wouldn't be on the run. Lily says she was only trying to help. Rich tries to get them to stop, warning them that fighting is exactly what the creature wants. But Ronnie is too angry and yells that they should have just left Lily in the mental hospital. Halloran goes back to the place where he and his friends hang out, the Black Spot. They ask where he's been, but he won't tell them. They talk about having a party. Halloran gets distracted and sees water spreading on the floor. He warns them the fridge must be leaking. Ronnie tells Will she thinks the creature won't stop until one of them is dead. Will tells her she was too hard on Lily. Ronnie admits she's just so tired of being scared all the time. Will says he is too. They hug, and for a moment it looks like they're about to kiss, but then Charlotte drives up and tells Will to get in the car. Halloran finds Hank hiding at the hangout. His friends explain that Charlotte asked them to hide him there. Hank promises he won't cause any trouble. It's all too much for Halloran, and he just walks away. Charlotte arrives with Ronnie and Will. Ronnie runs to her dad and gives him a big hug. Charlotte thanks Halloran for his help, but he just tells her to leave him out of it and walks off. Hank promises Ronnie they'll never be separated again. Marge and Rich are still at the tower. Rich offers to help her change the bandage on her eye. He carefully takes it off. Marge asks if it looks terrible. Rich tells her that no, it's actually the most impressive thing he's ever seen, and just stares at her for a second. Rich Rich says that Lily and Ronnie almost attacked each other, and that he has a bad feeling the creature isn't done with them yet. He thinks Lily might be right about the dagger she found, and that they have a better chance of surviving if they all stick together. After helping Marge with her bandage, Rich throws his paper airplane again. It sails through the air and lands right near the sewer entrance. Halloran is drinking alone on the base. Hanlon walks in and tells him that General Shaw has ordered them to keep looking for the markers, no matter how many people get hurt. Halloran says that's what Shaw should have been doing from the start. For a second, Halloran sees the ghost of a dead soldier standing behind Hanlon. Hanlon asks him what really happened down in the sewers and why he was down there for so long. Halloran admits that when he was a kid, he could see dead people. His grandmother taught him to imagine a box in his mind and lock away everything scary he saw. When he was 9, he locked the dead in that box. He tells Hanlon the creature forced its way into his mind and broke the box open. Hanlon asks if he can see the dead now. Halloran says they don't talk to him unless he looks at them, but when they do, they know things that living people shouldn't. Hanlon asks if the dead can help them find what they're looking for. Halloran refuses and calls him a suck-up. Hanlon threatens to have him disciplined if he doesn't cooperate. Hanlon goes back to his house and asks Charlotte where Will is. She says he's probably with his friends. Then she gets angry at him for hitting Will. He admits he wasn't acting like himself. Charlotte tells him he's locked them in a cage with a monster. She starts packing her bags and says she's going to help Hank get out of town, and then she's taking Will and moving back to Shreveport. She tells Hanlon he can join them when his time in the military is over. Then she leaves. At school, Lily can't stop hearing Pennywise's voice in her head. She holds the dagger under her desk. When she opens her desk drawer, she sees a vision of her dead father making fun of her, and she starts to panic. The dagger begins to glow again. Lily gets up and walks out of the classroom. In the cafeteria, Rich tells Marge he knows where Hank is hiding. They decide to try to get Ronnie to join them again. They talk about hearing strange voices coming from the sewers. Rich jokes about peeing in a jar, and Marge jokes back. He gives her an eye patch for her eye. Just then, Patty and her friends walk over and start making fun of her. Marge suddenly declares that she is a freak, rips off the eye patch, and scares them away. Rich, Marge, and will head to the place where Hank and Ronnie are hiding. Lily walks to Ingrid's house. She notices a neighbor staring at her. No one answers when she knocks, so she lets herself in. She hears music coming from the attic. Up there, she finds an old photo album. It's full of pictures of Ingrid's life, her marriage to a man named Stan, and some very old photos from 1908 taken in Cumberland County, Maine. Lily finds photos of a young Ingrid with Bob Gray and notices the similarity between Bob Gray and Pennywise. Ingrid appears and asks what she's doing. Lily says the door was open and asks if she's all right. Ingrid says she is. Lily mentions they went to the tunnels. Ingrid reminds her she asked her not to go, but Lily says they had no choice. She hugs Ingrid and says she didn't know where else to turn. Ingrid says she's arrived at the right place. Lily notices more photographs of Bob Gray dressed as Pennywise. Ingrid asks what's wrong. Seeing the photograph, she understands. Ingrid asks if she's seen him. Lily confirms it herself. Ingrid laughs. She says she's happy that Lily brought Pennywise back. She points to an old costume. Lily realizes the figure they saw in the cemetery was Ingrid. Ingrid admits she followed them on their bikes and was outside Will's house. Lily asks why she did all of that. Ingrid explains her father was a carnival performer known as Pennywise, the dancing clown. She idolized him, but one day he was taken away. The carnival left and she stayed behind in Derry. She says she always felt she would be drawn back to him. In a flashback, Ingrid works at Juniper Hill. One day, she hears a little girl say her parents don't believe her when she talks about Pennywise. The girl says he wants to show her his carnival, that he's hiding in the pipes, and has called her to the basement at night. That little girl is Mabel. Ingrid realizes she might see her father again. Pennywise appears. He approaches Mabel, tells her she finally came, and hands her a red balloon. He says she's brought a new friend, referring to Ingrid. Ingrid asks if it's her father, but Pennywise laughs. He shifts into his monstrous face. They try to run, but Mabel trips. The door closes, leaving Ingrid outside and Mabel trapped with the clown. Ingrid tries to open it. She hears Mabel scream until Pennywise devours her. Carnival music plays, and Pennywise takes on the appearance of Bob Gray. He tells her he's missed her, that she shouldn't be afraid, that she only needs to open the door and let him in. Ingrid opens the door and lets him in. Back in the attic, Ingrid tells Lily it was him. Her father may be different, changed by everything he's lived through or the places he's been, but still him. She explains the moment she saw him, she felt whole again. Every time that shadow reappeared, she felt it was stealing her father from her. She was convinced she had to find a way to free him. She had done whatever was necessary to get him back, to see him again, to remind him of the love they shared. She believes he will be able to free himself if she helps him. Lily begs her not to hurt her. Ingrid says she would never allow anything to cause her harm. Lily asks if that protection extends to her friends as well. Ingrid says that more than anyone she should understand. If there were a chance to see her father again, to hold him and become her little girl once more, she would do anything to make it happen. Lily says her father is dead, but Ingrid reminds her of the old Derry saying, "Who dies here doesn't really die." She holds out her hand and invites Lily to go with her that night. Lily grabs the dagger and makes a small cut on Ingrid's palm before fleeing the house. At Halloran's resting place, the black spot, the kids are gathered around Ronnie. Marge tells Ronnie that if they're gonna face that thing, they have to do it all together. Ronnie says she's not moving from there until she's sure her father is safe. Will tries to calm her down. He says that Hank will be fine, that nobody knows he's hiding in that spot. Ronnie says she won't be separated from her dad again. She tells them they can do whatever they want, but she's staying put. She walks away. Will runs after Ronnie. He says there's a real chance to stop that thing for good, but it would be better if they did it together. Ronnie asks if he really thinks her dad's going to let her go back to that place. Hank steps in to say he doesn't plan on letting Ronnie go anywhere. He understands Will's concern, but makes it clear Ronnie won't be alone. Hank points out his daughter has a friend, referring to Will. Hank asks him what his favorite movie is. At the Falcon Tavern, Stan, along with Phil and Susie's father and several other men, are gathered because they still haven't managed to track down Hank. They wonder where they could look next. They already checked the empty lots and found no trace. One suggests maybe he's hiding in the sewer. Another proposes they'll have to go in, split up again, and search every underground corridor. They also mention the area beyond the drill yard where some homeless people spend the night. Bowers enters and says he knows where Hank is. He says he's not in the drill yard. He explains a woman called to give notice. She didn't want to provide her name, but considering the nature of the place she indicated, he believes the information is legitimate. The men ask if he plans to arrest Hank. Bowers responds that while that would be the most probable, he won't be able to do it. When he got the information, he was cleaning his desk because the deputy mayor had just relieved him of his duties. They've lost faith in his ability to serve and protect. He concludes he couldn't even give Hank a ticket, even if he wanted to, implying the mob should take care of it. Halloran joins the party with the others. Marge and Rich decide to stay as well. Rich orders 2 sodas while watching a couple dancing, wondering what kind of dance that is. They're served the sodas. Rich comments they taste weird, but the person who brought them explains they're Air Force drinks. They decide to try them and toast. Will tells Hank he watched War of the Worlds at the base recreation center and loved the movie. Hank says he seems like a good young man and that if anything were to happen, it comforts him to know someone with his character is taking care of his daughter. Will says nothing will happen to either him or Ronnie. Will comes back with his friends. Rich looks disappointed upon learning Will didn't manage to convince Hank to let Ronnie go to the sewers. A band member approaches Rich and asks if he knows how to play any instrument. Rich says just a little. The man explains they are about to start, but the usual drummer is drunk and asleep and offers him to take his place. Marge encourages him, saying she's never seen him play, and Rich agrees. The band starts playing with Rich on drums. Marge comments she loves the Air Force soda and watches Rich play. Ingrid gets ready in her periwinkle outfit. A couple stands outside the celebration spot. Multiple cars arrive, and the woman asks the young man if they're waiting for more people. He says no. The masked lynch mob bursts in, armed with shotguns. The story flashes back to a fair in 1908. A man on stage gets the crowd excited, and then announces, "Pennywise, the dancing clown." Kids cheer as Pennywise comes out and does his act. A few kids even run on stage to dance with him. Watching from far away is the creature, pretending to be a quiet little kid. After the show, the man playing Pennywise, Bob Gray, goes backstage with his daughter, Ingrid, and starts taking off his makeup. Ingrid tells him everyone loved the show and that more people will come to the next one. She's wearing her own clown makeup and says she did it herself. Bob is surprised but happy. He says they can be an act together called Pennywise and Periwinkle. Ingrid explains that Periwinkle was her mother's stage name, and she wants to keep using it. Bob asks if she'll ever want to change it, but she says no. Then Ingrid asks Bob if he misses being in a big circus. He says sometimes he misses the crowds, and that one day he might go back to that life, but his next act will be different. Ingrid gives him a hug. Later that night, Bob is dressed as Pennywise again, having a drink and a smoke before the next show. He sees a little kid walking toward him from the woods. Pennywise tells the kid to go away, that the show is somewhere else. The kid kid says, "You seem to be good at getting kids to come to you." Pennywise thinks that's a strange thing for a kid to say. The kid says he can't find his parents. Pennywise says his own parents are dead. The kid asks for help, but Pennywise says no. Suddenly, they hear screams from the woods. The kid says, "That's my mom," and grabs Pennywise's hand. He leads him into the woods. This is how the creature tricks its victims, by pretending to be a lost child. A little while later, Ingrid is looking for her father. She hears people whispering, saying they don't know what happened and that they should search the woods. The man running the fair walks up to Ingrid. He shows her Pennywise's red handkerchief and says he found it in the bushes. He suggests maybe wolves got him. When Ingrid sees the handkerchief, she breaks down and cries. Back in the present, a mob of angry men in masks shows up at the Black Spot, the place where Halloran and his friends hang out. A couple outside sees them coming and warns everyone inside. The masked men burst in, pointing guns at everybody. Their leader says they're only looking for one person and they'll leave when they get him. They yell at a woman named Norma Price for being there, and then they demand Hank, saying they know he's hiding inside. Just then, Halloran steps forward. He tells them they have the wrong place and that the building is military property. The masked men don't care and say they're going to search it anyway. Before they can, Hank steps out to stop them from hurting anyone else. Ronnie begs him not to. Hank tells the men to just leave everyone else alone. At that moment, the other military guys pull out their official weapons. The masked men back down and look like they're leaving. But once they're outside, they block the doors so no one can escape. Then, they start throwing bottles filled with gasoline and fire at the building and shooting through the windows. Inside, the building is on fire. Smoke is everywhere, and all the exits are blocked. People get shot as they try to run. In all the chaos, Ronnie tries to find her dad. Marge's arm catches on fire. Halloran starts having visions again, seeing the ghosts of dead people walking through the fire. Halloran remembers the floor is weak near the refrigerator because of a water leak. With another man's help, he moves it, but the other man is shot and killed. Halloran smashes a hole in the floor, making an escape route. Just as he's about to jump down, he hears Ronnie scream and sees the ghost of the ancient chief Sesqui. Then Pennywise appears, walking calmly through the fire. He calls out to a woman named Noreen, offers her his hand, and says he knows the way out. She follows him. A moment later, Ronnie sees Pennywise eating Noreen. The clown just mocks her and laughs. Ronnie runs but trips and falls. Halloran finds her and tells her he'll get her out. Pennywise shows up again, talking right to Halloran. The ghosts of the dead appear behind the clown. Halloran asks the spirit of the Sesqui where the other kids are and asks her to show him the way. Outside, the mob gets ready to leave. Some of them want to stay to make sure Hank is dead, but most of them figure no one could have survived the fire, so they drive away. Guided by the spirit, Halloran finds the other kids. As Marge and Rich try to escape, the ceiling collapses and blocks their way. Hank gets outside with Ronnie and Will. Rich tells Marge to hide inside a big refrigerator. She says it's too small for both of them. He knows. He pushes her inside anyway. She begs him not to, but Rich closes the door, saving her life by giving up his own. From inside the refrigerator, Marge begs Rich to let her out, but he won't. He asks her if she remembers him talking about knights and how they sleep with a chamber pot by their bed. Marge nods. Rich tells her knights don't just use chamber pots. They also protect maidens. Then he asks if she remembers the day the guinea pigs got loose at school. It was their first week there. Marge was wearing a black sweater, a gray skirt, and had a string tied around her finger. She laughs, surprised he remembers all that. Rich admits he noticed her that day. He thought she was beautiful and wondered who she was. Marge remembers seeing him stare and telling him, "Take a picture, it'll last longer," even though she didn't know what it meant back then. She says she's thought about all the things she wishes she'd said instead. Crying, she tells Rich that she loves him. Calmly, he tells her he loves her too. Meanwhile, outside, a man named Stan tries to start his car, but it won't work. The other men in the mob drive off and leave him. As Stan opens the hood of his car, Periwinkle, the female clown, steps out of the shadows. Stan asks if she's Ingrid. She says hello. He gets angry, asks what she's wearing, and tells her to go home, threatening to hurt her if she doesn't. Suddenly, Periwinkle whispers, "Hey, Daddy." Stan turns around and sees Pennywise holding a huge knife. Pennywise kills Stan brutally while Periwinkle just watches. After, Pennywise starts to eat Stan's body. Periwinkle explains that she knew the mob would come for Hank. She knew there would be fear and blood, and that it would be enough to let Pennywise come back. Everything she did was to bring him back. Pennywise tells her to show some respect. She obeys and honks her clown horn. Pennywise claps, walks over to her, and tells her to come to him. She hugs him and says she loves him. Pennywise tells her she did a good job and that he's going to sleep now, but he'll be back. She begs him not to leave. He gives her a strange look, and in that moment, she realizes she's not looking at her father. She asks who he really is. He just says, "I'm Pennywise, your dancing daddy." She insists that he's not her father. Pennywise admits that he ate her real dad, but says because her father is still alive inside of him. He lets out a horrible laugh. Ingrid begs him to stop and starts taking off her clown costume. Pennywise tells her to come closer and opens his mouth, showing her the strange, hypnotizing lights that he uses to break people's minds. Later, firefighters search the burned building and find Marge alive inside the refrigerator. She looks around, confused, until she sees Rich's body lying on the floor. She collapses and cries, holding on to him. Ronnie arrives and also breaks down when she sees Rich is dead. The kids stand outside in shock. Nearby, a woman takes off a wig and starts laughing like she's gone crazy. A little later, Ingrid is carried away on a stretcher to Juniper Hill, completely broken. As paramedics move Rich's body, Marge sees his hand hanging down. She asks them to stop for a second. She gently places his hand back on his chest, then steps away as Will and Ronnie try to comfort her. Hanlon arrives with Charlotte, calling for Will. Charlotte checks to make sure he's not hurt. Will says he's okay. Ronnie quietly tells Charlotte that her dad is hiding in the woods. Meanwhile, Halloran is overwhelmed by visions. Hanlon asks if he's okay. Halloran says he's not. He says he opened his mind to the dead, and now he can't shut them out. He hears the voices of dead soldiers repeating, "We have to fix it." Charlotte, Ronnie, Will, and Marge go into the woods and find Hank. He says he's not hurt, but feels terrible about everyone who died. Charlotte insists they have to leave right away. Will asks what will happen if his dad finds out Hank is there. Charlotte tells him his dad already knows. Hanlon tells Fuller they need to help Halloran. Fuller says they have to go back to the base. Halloran says the creature isn't active anymore. It feels like it's asleep. Fuller says the general still wants answers, especially with so many people dead and no progress on finding the markers. Halloran explains that he saw one of the markers was placed where the ancient chief died and that they need to follow her spirit. Hanlon is confused, but Halloran can see the warrior chief Sesqui clearly in a vision. In the car, Charlotte asks what they're going to do with Hank. Hanlon says they'll hide him at his own house in Derry because no one would ever think to look for him there. Charlotte is worried, but Hanlon tells her it's okay because the creature is sleeping. Charlotte argues that someone has to be blamed for all of this. Hanlon says that's not their job. He promises that after this one last mission, they will leave Derry for good. Meanwhile, the news reports a completely different story. They blame Hank for the fire and say that brave townspeople saved a lot of lives. The police report that they found Hank's burned body in the building. Somewhere else, Rose and the other elders of her tribe say that the final event, the omen, has passed. The feeding cycle is over and the creature is resting. Rose reports that 23 people died at the black spot, including 17 young people. She tells them they did everything they could. Because of them, the creature is still trapped and won't return for another 27 years. Meanwhile, the military is still digging for the markers. General Shaw asks Fuller if they found anything, but he says they've been working since early in the morning and should have found something by now. Later, Shaw checks on Halloran. He answers the general rudely, then apologizes, explaining that the whispers from the dead are getting louder. Shaw tells him he should go back to the base and get some rest, but Halloran keeps seeing visions of the warrior Sesqui chief watching him from far away. Elsewhere, Charlotte is making a phone call. Hank asks if she's sure her friend can help them. She tells him that if anyone can get his family out of Derry, it's this person. She asks him to trust her. When she gets off the phone, Hank decides to go with her. At the same time, Will says he's going to Lily's house with Ronnie and Marge, so they can tell her about Rich in person. Charlotte warns him it isn't safe, but will insist they'll be fine because his dad made sure the creature is asleep. Charlotte argues that the real danger now is the people in town. Will refuses to stay, and Hank adds that Ronnie isn't staying behind either. Hank puts on one of Hanlon's military uniforms so he can blend in and not scare the neighbors. As they leave, Charlotte tells Will one last time that he has to stay home. Ronnie and Marge get to Lily's house. Lily looks terrible, with dark circles under her eyes. Her mother lets them in. Ronnie and Marge explain that something bad happened last night and that they went to the black spot without her. Lily says she heard about the fire and asks if everyone is okay. Ronnie tells her that Hank, Will, and the others are safe. Then Marge starts to cry. Lily asks, "What about Rich?" But Marge can't answer. The silence tells her everything she needs to know. Later, the girls meet at the tower to gather Rich's things. Marge finds a paper airplane he made and starts crying. She says Rich could never get one to fly all the way to Maine Avenue. Ronnie and Lily hug her as they all cry together. Back at the dig site, the soldiers finally uncover one of the markers, wrapped in a turtle shell. Fuller tells Hanlon that Halloran was right. They carefully put the marker in a box box and load it onto a truck. Hanlon is about to get in, but Fuller stops him and says there's a new plan. Instead of taking the marker to the middle of Derry, they're taking it to the base to study it. Hanlon reminds him the order was to move the markers to the center of town. Fuller says since the creature is asleep, now is the perfect time to analyze it. As the soldiers drive away, Daniel watches from the woods and runs to warn the others. Charlotte brings Hank to Rose's house. Rose invites them in and explains that things have calmed down a little because the town thinks Hank is dead. She says she has friends in Montreal who can get Hank's family new papers. But getting Hank across the border will be tough. As they're talking, Daniel bursts in with urgent news. Back at the base, the marker is about to be dropped into a furnace of lava. Hanlon storms in, points his gun, and orders them to stop. Fuller stands in his way. Hanlon argues they were only supposed to study it. Shaw steps in and pulls Hanlon aside. He tells him that the real threat isn't another country, but Americans turning against each other. He lists Mussolini fanatics, racial riots, and the feminist movement as proof that the country is slowly breaking apart. He says fear is the only thing that keeps people in line. He points to the fire as proof. After it happened, the town went quiet. Hanlon accuses him of sacrificing children. Shaw replies that soldiers accept that innocent people sometimes die. When Hanlon threatens to tell everyone what he's doing, Shaw warns him that destroying the marker now is like closing the barn door after the horse is already out. The evil is already free. He gives the order. The marker sinks into the lava, breaking the ancient cage and letting Pennywise wake up. Hank aims his gun at Shaw and tells him to stop, but Fuller points his own weapon at Hanlon and orders him to stand down. Shaw calmly tells Hanlon he's already played the hero. After Hanlon leaves, he tells Fuller to make sure he doesn't leave the base. Later, Will gets a phone call from Ronnie. She's crying, saying nothing feels right and she can't stop thinking about Rich's death. Suddenly, her voice changes. She says she's hungry and she can smell Rich's body. Will realizes it's not Ronnie on the phone. He screams that he's done being scared. When he turns around, Pennywise is standing right in front of him. The clown opens its mouth and Will is trapped in its hypnotizing lights. Suddenly, a thick fog covers all of Derry. Alarms start blaring at the military base. Across town, trees begin to die, and people start acting crazy, with no idea what's happening. Inside a small shop, a woman stares out the window with a terrifying, creepy smile. At the high school, all classes are canceled, but the seniors are told to go to an assembly in the auditorium. The principal, Dan Levy, walks onto the stage. He moves stiffly, like a puppet. He tells the students they have a special show planned for them. Then he announces Pennywise, the dancing clown. Pennywise appears out of nowhere, holding the principal. Without warning, he brutally kills him and throws the body into the crowd. Everyone panics. Students scramble for the exits as Pennywise dances and sings. He opens his mouth, showing the strange lights inside. One by one, the students begin to float up into the air. Meanwhile, Ronnie, Lily, and Marge are at the tower when they see the fog. Outside, they see missing posters plastered everywhere with the faces of their classmates. Marge thinks it might be a trick, but she's afraid Pennywise has taken all of them. As they walk through town, they see Pennywise riding in a creepy circus wagon, leading a parade of floating students and playing a trumpet. Ronnie trips over the principal's severed head. Shaken, the girls run to the auditorium, but all they find is the principal's body. No students. When they go back outside and see the head again, it hits them. Everyone is gone. Then Lily finds another poster. It's Will's face, covered in blood. The three of them freeze. Pennywise has him. They see a long trail of blood on the ground and decide to follow it. Marge is filled with anger and grief. They grab some bikes but realize they're too slow. Nearby, they find a milkman dead next to his truck. Marge gets an idea. The girls warn her she doesn't know how to drive, but Marge insists she's watched her Uncle Mike drive his truck many times. She climbs into the driver's seat and starts driving, clumsy but determined, knocking over trash cans as they speed away. At the base, Hanlon keeps calling Will, but he doesn't answer. Then the phone rings. It's Pennywise, laughing. The clown asks what scares a man who isn't afraid of anything. Then he hears Will's voice, scared and confused. Hanlon begs him to say where he is, but Pennywise cuts in, mocking him. He says Will is being kept comfortable and cool, then laughs and hangs up. Furious, Hanlon smashes the phone. Elsewhere, Halloran is sitting alone, surrounded by the ghosts of the dead, their voices screaming in his head. He can't take it anymore. He raises his gun to his head, ready to end it all. Just then, Hanlon bursts through the door. Halloran begs him to let him do it, saying he can't stand the voices. But Hanlon yells that Will is gone, and he needs Halloran's help. He swears he will do anything if Halloran can help him save his son. Finally, Halloran gives in. At the base, Shaw watches the fog spread. Fuller reports that Hanlon left without permission and that Halloran is with him. For the first time, Shaw looks worried. Hanlon and Halloran get to Rose's house. Charlotte learns that Will is missing. She snaps, hitting Hanlon and screaming that he promised their son would be safe. Hanlon insists Halloran can help. He tells her that a mother's connection to her child might help guide them. Rose interrupts, warning them that even if they find Will, it won't be enough. But Hanlon refuses to give up. Rose explains they have one last chance. If Halloran does what he once did for Shaw, they might be able to stop the creature. They have to find the dagger and use it to replace the marker that Shaw destroyed. This will fix the cage. But they're running out of time. They have to do it before the creature gets to its full power. Rose describes a dead pine tree on the riverbank. She says that's the farthest point where the dagger can reconnect to the other markers. The earth itself will carry the power. It's their only hope. Halloran snaps, calling them fools. He says he can barely even think with all the voices in his head, let alone find the dagger. Rose calmly tells him she can make the dead quiet, but only if he trusts her completely. She makes him a special tea, explaining it will connect him directly to the strange place where the evil was born. And with that, they take their final chance. Rose warns Halloran that not everything in that strange place is evil. She tells him that when one door in the mind opens, another one has to close to make the voices stop. Halloran drinks the tea, but it works so fast that he's pulled into a vision before Rose can finish her warning. He sees the girls. Marge is driving the milk truck as fast as she can through the fog, and Ronnie is yelling at her to go faster. The truck hits a big pothole and crashes into a tree. In the chaos, the dagger flies out of Lily's hands. As Lily frantically looks for it, Marge sees it in the wreckage and reaches for it, but Lily screams at her not to touch it. Lily grabs the dagger herself and quickly hides it under her shirt. Halloran sees all of this clearly. He tells the others that Will's friends have the dagger and they're chasing the clown. Without a second thought, they help him into a truck and drive off, with Daniel struggling to see through the thick fog. As they get closer, Halloran tells them they're almost there. Hank asks why the dagger hasn't protected the girls if it's so powerful. Rose explains that the dagger is a piece of the same meteor that brought the creature to Earth. Like anything that's lost, it just wants to go home, back to the crash site under the Neibolt Street house. The farther away it gets, the more it messes with the mind of the person carrying it, and it will fight back with incredible force. Meanwhile, Ronnie tells Marge that something is wrong with the dagger. Lily sees them looking at her and accuses them of thinking she's crazy. Marge gently suggests she hold the dagger for a little while, but Lily snaps. She accuses them of never trusting her, of just using her to save Hank, and of not caring about her pain. She runs off into the woods, and Ronnie and Marge chase her. They tackle her, and they all struggle for the dagger. Marge yells that it's twisting Lily's mind. Ronnie tries to reason with her, telling her that this isn't who she is, and reminds her that she has always been a lifeboat for everyone else. Finally, Lily breaks down and says she's sorry. Ronnie tells her it wasn't really her talking. Marge suggests they take turns carrying the dagger. Suddenly, the dagger starts to glow. They look up and see the circus wagon and a huge parade of floating students crossing the frozen river. They wonder if Will is with them and decide they have to find out. At the same time, Halloran sees the same vision. Rose says the creature is already at the river and they won't get to the kids in time. Hanlon realizes they might be able to slow it down if Halloran goes into the creature's mind again. The girls reach the frozen river, where Will and the other students are floating above the ice. Pennywise floats down and starts mocking them, calling them the fool, the weirdo, and the failure. As he gets closer, Ronnie holds up the dagger and it forces him back. The clown disappears into the fog, then reappears in different spots until he's suddenly right behind them. He grabs Marge. He leans in close and says he's always wondered what she tastes like, calling her Margaret Tozier. Marge is confused and says that's not her name. Pennywise explains that she's not Margaret yet, but she will be after she falls in love, gets married, and has a baby boy named Richie. He mocks her with a twisted rhyme. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes Richie in a baby carriage, unless he dies with her. He shows her a missing poster with the face of her future son. For Pennywise, the past, present, and future are all happening at once. Just as he's about to kill her, he suddenly freezes. The students, including Will, start falling out of the sky. The adults arrive. Hanlon runs to Will and Hank hugs Ronnie. They get the kids to safety. Hanlon takes the dagger and gives it to Daniel, telling him the dead tree is on the south bank. They run for it, but Shaw's soldiers start shooting at them. Hanlon is hit. A bullet hits Daniel in the neck, killing him. Will runs to his father. As he's dying, Hanlon gives Will the dagger. He tells him to hide in the fog, get to the tree, and bury the dagger deep in the ground. As Shaw orders his men to arrest the wounded Hanlon, Will admits that he's scared. Hanlon tells him he doesn't have to be like him. he just has to be himself. Will runs into the fog with Ronnie, Lily, and Marge. Pennywise is still frozen, trapped in a fake reality where he's just Bob Gray at the fair, surrounded by worried people. He insists he is not Bob Gray, but actually a god, a world eater. The man, incredulous, slaps him and tells him he must have hit his head. Meanwhile, the kids reach the dead tree. The dagger fights back, trying to make Will take it back to the Neibolt house. Together, they force it into the ground. Shaw walks up to the frozen Pennywise, saying he's going to free him from the illusion Halloran has trapped him in. But inside Pennywise's mind, Halloran reveals himself. Pennywise shatters the illusion and is fully back in the real world. Shaw tells him he's free. Pennywise recognizes his scent, transforms into his greatest fear, and kills him. Pennywise runs past the adults while the kids struggle to get the dagger to the tree. Hanlon warns the general to stop the creature, but the general refuses and calls him a traitor. Halloran and the other adults fight the military and subdue the soldiers. The kids watch Pennywise try to escape. Hanlon shoots Pennywise in the head, which explodes but regenerates. He shoots again with the same result, then runs out of ammunition. Pennywise opens his mouth, showing the deadlights, and crawls toward the kids as they try to plunge the dagger into the tree. Halloran sees Sesqui send Rich's spirit to help the kids. Rose shoots at Pennywise. He transforms into a giant bat and lunges at the children. The dagger strikes the roots, releasing golden beams into the sky. The explosion throws Pennywise backward. He cycles through different forms before becoming the Deadlights and retreating to hibernate for 27 years. Hanlon wakes up and asks about Will. Charlotte says he's fine. Marge asks the kids if they felt something. Ronnie says she felt another pair of hands helping them. Will says it was Rich, and Lily confirms she sensed him too. Rose mourns Taniel's death. The next day, they hold Rich's funeral. Marge speaks about knowing Rich for only a month, saying there are only friends who stand by us when pain hits. She says Rich taught her it's worth feeling fear, having hope, and living for friends, sometimes dying for them if necessary. The kids cry. Halloran watches Rich's spirit embrace his parents and tells them Rich's hand is on their shoulders and he'll always be there. Rich's father asks who he is. Halloran says he's still figuring that out. Marge sees Rich's paper plane stuck in a tree in the center of town. Lily visits her father's grave and apologizes for not visiting more. She tells him she's made new friends. Lily, Marge, Ronnie, and will meet at the tower. Marge reminds Lily that Pennywise told her she'd have a son who would kill him in the future. Pennywise said the past, present, and future are the same to him, and his death is his birth. Lily suggests it was just trying to scare her. Marge wonders if it perceives time differently and could act in the distant past to kill someone before they're born. Lily says if that's true, it's someone else's fight. Halloran says goodbye to Hanlon. The tea silenced the voices tormenting him. He's leaving for London to work cooking at a friend's hotel. Hanlon offers help if needed. Halloran jokes, how much trouble can a hotel cause? Charlotte and Hank's mother say goodbye to Hank, who's leaving Derry with Ronnie since he's a fugitive. Charlotte says Rose's friends will help relocate him to another country. Rose asks Hanlon if his retirement was honorable. He says yes, on the condition he keeps quiet. He no longer has faith in the army after what happened to his family. Rose asks him and Charlotte to join her organization to watch over things and ensure no one reopens the cage. She's selling the farm because it's too empty without Taniel. Hanlon says his family has had enough of Derry. Will and Ronnie share a moment. Will mentions that people say those who leave Derry forget. There are parts he wouldn't mind forgetting. Ronnie kisses him. Hanlon calls Will to leave. In the car, Charlotte says she's considering Rose's offer. Hanlon asks Will if he wants them to stay. Will gets out saying he needs a pen. Hanlon and Charlotte buy the farm from Rose. Will writes a letter to Ronnie promising he won't forget because he's staying. He hopes if he writes enough, she won't forget either. Hank and Ronnie travel to Montreal. Ingrid is now a patient at Juniper Hill in a straitjacket. 26 years later, in October 1988, elderly Ingrid paints until interrupted by screams. She finds a woman has taken her life. The family is on the floor, a husband crying while shaking his daughter, Beverly. Ingrid tells him not to be sad. You know what they say about Derry. Everyone who dies here doesn't really die there. With this, the story ends. Hope you guys liked it. I did, by the way. The show is really good. So that's it for this video. We'll meet again in the next one. Until then, you can check out the other recaps on the channel and don't forget to subscribe too.